everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. So today's video I am once again joined by the beautiful Finley. Finley is my newest child. He is currently 2 weeks old. Well, he's 2 weeks and a couple of days. There was an appointment yesterday with the health visitor and there was some things that went on in that appointment that I wanted to include in this update. So it is a little bit late, it's just over 2 weeks. But I really wanted to come on and film some postpartum updates. I found these super helpful when I'd given birth to George. It was really handy to hear about other women's experiences with recovery, but also how their children were doing as well, and also get an understanding that all kids and recoveries of women, they happen at different rates, and that's absolutely fine. But it was lovely to watch other women talk about their experiences. And so I thought, with this baby, I would come on and explain a little bit about how we're doing week to week, month to month, and just give you a bit of an update as to how I'm doing in terms of recovery, but also mainly really about how Finley is doing with like eating, feeding, sleeping, that kind of thing. So if you do enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you as a viewer. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. So I kind of wanted to split this video then into two parts really. So I'll quickly talk a little bit about myself and recovery from my point of view, and then I will also then move on to Finley. I'm just going to do myself first just because there isn't too much to talk about for me. I kind of really want to focus the video mainly on Finley and how he's been doing over the last couple of weeks. So like I say then, Finley is currently just over 2 weeks old, and it's been a wild 2 weeks. It's gone so quickly. I can't believe, you know, my labour was 2 weeks ago. It's just flown by super fast, and he's already changed. You know, he's kind of like lost that newborn sort of face, and he's starting to like fill into his cheeks a little bit more, and things are just changing super quickly. So yeah, sort of focusing on myself then to begin with, I really wanted to touch a little bit upon mental health and like my well-being and really just sort of how I am. Biggest thing that I forgot about after having children is your hormones are still very much there and raging. I think I thought with George, once I'd given birth to George, that my hormones were going to kind of like level out, and I'd stop being an emotional wreck. And that wasn't the case, and I kind of forgot that this time around as well. So once I'd given birth to Finley, obviously the days after birth were quite emotional. Being in hospital, etc., it can have an effect on your mental health anyway. But even when I got home, I was surprised and shocked to find out that I was still very hormonal, very emotional, and things would make me cry all the time. I don't really know what it is that's making me emotional. It can be the TV, it can be an advert, it can be something that George does, it can be something my partner says, it can be something that I'm doing, like the toast could come out the wrong colour, you know, whatever it is. It just seems to set me off, and I know my hormones will level out and calm down eventually, and I am fine. It's just something I forgot that is quite a big thing after pregnancy and labour, is that your hormones are still much there. I think two of the biggest things though that are sort of making me upset a little bit and bothering me, the first one being, I think I'm feeling some guilt around how lovely my birth was with Finley. Comparing that to my birth with George, who's my firstborn, he's 4. I've mentioned it in plenty of other videos, but if you have just stumbled across this video, very briefly, George was a premature baby. He was in the intensive care unit for a little while, and I didn't experience his birth. It wasn't how I planned it. I didn't meet him for a good few days until afterwards, and it just wasn't the kind of birth I wanted. So this time, when I've had such a lovely birth and experience, and I got to meet him immediately, do skin to skin, bring him home, you know, day one, all those kind of things, I think I'm just being a little bit of guilt that I didn't do that with George. I mentioned it in the video, my last video that I posted, my pregnancy story, but I am super grateful for how the birth was with George, because it's his birth story, and you know, I wouldn't change it for the world really. Obviously I would prefer him not to have been premature and not to have spent time in intensive care and been able to bring him home, but it is his birth story, and it's what makes it about him, if that makes sense. I don't know how well I'm explaining that. And then sort of secondly, I think I'm feeling a bit emotional that we're not going to be doing this again. Like, this is our last baby. We're not going to be having another one. And although I'm relieved about that because I do not want more than 2 children, I'm done at 2, I think I just feel a bit sad that I'm not going to be having a pregnancy again. I'm not going to be feeling that bond just between me and baby. I'm not going to be feeling the kicks again. I won't be having like a labour or bringing that baby home for the first time. So I feel like those firsts are all, they're all over now, and I won't be experiencing it again. So I feel a little bit sad. And then, you know, every day when I feel like something's happening with baby, I feel like it's the last time I'm going to be experiencing this as, you know, a mum with a newborn. I don't know if any of this is really making sense, but it's just a couple of things there that are probably making me a little bit more emotional than I'd like to be. A little bit about sort of like body weight and image, etc. So obviously all women, whether they say it or not, I'm sure they do deep down somewhere care about how their body looks after pregnancy. And I think we forget as women that our body has spent 9 months making the most perfect, gorgeous little babies, and your body isn't going to bounce back very quickly. You know, some women are very lucky, they bounce back extraordinarily fast. I was quite lucky with George that I did bounce back quite quickly, but that is probably just because I only went to 33 weeks, so I never really got to that big stage in pregnancy, whereas this time I was pretty huge, so my body looks very different this time than it did with George. But I'm not too worried about it, really. I thought I'd be more bothered. Of course, part of me is wishing that my body will go back to how it was at some point, but if it doesn't, I'm not too fussed. It's just a lovely reminder that I built 2 of the most beautiful children in the world, and yeah, it's just a reminder that that's what my body did. But you know, I'm not sort of rushing to try and get back to how I was, but I am back to eating a little bit more healthily. The cravings have disappeared, and obviously I don't have gestational diabetes anymore either. A lot of the sort of weight anyway, I think, was baby, placenta, water retention, that kind of thing. I don't look as puffy anymore. I definitely have like a puffy face in pregnancy. My hands were swollen, my legs and feet were swollen, and all of that has kind of like settled now. So I think that is really what the majority of like the weight was, plus all those Viennese whirls and mashed potato that I had eaten throughout my pregnancy. So in terms of like any remaining like symptoms then after the actual surgery and the procedure, etc., pretty much everything has disappeared. There are just a few things that are still bothering me. I'm still getting quite a lot of pain in my scar, in the wound, and that's another thing. I forget that I only had major surgery 2 weeks ago, so my scar and my wound area is still very, very sore. It stings a lot. It can be a lot more sore if I overdo it. If I, you know, move the wrong way or sit up the wrong way, it can bother me and hurt a little bit. I do remember though from George, although that was an emergency section, and the scar was, I think it was bigger, but also they kind of like rush to get in you because of how emergent they need to get in, if that makes sense. It can take up to 6 weeks for that pain to sort of disappear. And I still used to get aches and pains in the scar anyway, but which I didn't mind. It's more just like that stinging initial pain that bothers me. So hopefully that's going to disappear fairly soon. I also am still getting quite a bit of back pain. So from where they put the spinal needle in, I'm still getting pain in my spine and in my back, which has become quite noticeable. So I have mentioned it to the midwife. We're going to keep an eye on it. She hasn't discharged me yet from maternity services, because we're just going to keep an eye on the back pain. And then possibly refer me back to the anaesthetist to see what was going on there. Alongside that, I still have no feeling in my left bum cheek, and again that could be from the spinal. So I have feeling there, like I have sensation, but I can't feel like hot, cold, I can't feel any pain, which is just really, really strange. So that's another thing why I haven't been discharged from maternity services yet. They're just going to keep hold of me for a little bit longer, have another update in a couple of weeks time, and see if it's gone back to normal, or see whether we need to speak to anyone else from there. And that is pretty much it for me. I don't think there's really too much to talk about. Let me just check my list. Oh, one thing then that I was going to talk about, which will lead me quite nicely into Finley's update then, is I am exclusively pumping. So I didn't really want to breastfeed. This is going to sound very strange, but I just didn't like the idea of breastfeeding. I don't know what it is. It just wasn't for me. So I am pumping my breast milk and feeding it to Finley through a bottle. And it's going okay. I didn't realise how demanding it would be though. I'm pumping every couple of hours, otherwise my breasts feel very, very full of milk and get very, very painful. So I'm doing that every couple of hours. It takes up a lot of time, and yeah, I didn't realise how long it would take to sort of, it's like a part-time job whilst being a mum already and going through recovery, having to pump, but I'm loving it. I'm loving every second of it, and I know there's so many benefits to it for him. Leading on then to Finley, we might also talk about feeding then. So like I say then, Finley is on my breast milk. I pump. He has that throughout the day, but he does have some formula. So at night times, when I'm too tired to warm up bottles, we do have a perfect prep machine, and I use formula at night time for him just for ease. And he is absolutely fine on formula. He's absolutely fine on my breast milk. We have noticed like there is some differences between the two. He's definitely a little bit more sicky on my breast milk, and he also does have, he poos a lot more on my breast milk as well, which is normally quite common, that you can be a little bit more sicky and have more pooey nappies than if you're on formula, definitely more with breast milk. So that's all relatively normal. But he's doing really well with eating. He is currently on anywhere between 3 to 5 ounces everywhere, anywhere between sort of like 2 to 4 hours. So it's quite broad. There's no like exact time that he drinks or how much he drinks. It can be quite varied, but it is really anywhere between 3 to 5 ounces every 2 to 4 hours, and the midwives and the health visitor was absolutely fine with that. He takes to the bottles really well. We use Tommy Tippy with George as well, and we of course got them this time around as well, and he's taken to it amazingly. Leading from sort of feeding then on to like weights and bits then, because they kind of coincide together. Finley was born £8 5 ounces, and we went to the 5-day checkup, which is what all mums go to with their parents afterwards. You see a midwife, they weigh, they assess the wound, that kind of thing. And he was down to £7 13, so he had lost a little bit of weight during those 5 days. And we weighed him yesterday then. The health visitor came around, we got him weighed, and he is now up to £8 6. So he's just slightly over what his birth weight was, which I'm really happy about. He's feeding really, really well, so he's definitely putting on the weight, and the health visitor had no concerns whatsoever about his nappies, about his weight, about his skin colour, anything. She was super, super happy with how he's done over the last couple of weeks, which makes me feel really happy. And I was a bit worried about him having my breast milk. I was worried about things not going the right way and it being my fault, but he is absolutely thriving. Finley is a very peaceful baby. He just seems to eat, sleep and poo, and that's it, and repeat every single day. He rarely cries. He just seems to be at peace all the time or sleeping. So throughout the day he sleeps a lot. Obviously he can be quite alert though, but he doesn't ever really cry. So when he is awake he is alert but not crying, mainly always rooting for food, because he is just always hungry and looking for something. But he is sleeping really well at night time. So I know obviously you can't train babies, but they do sort of get into their own little patterns, I think, and they start noticing things. So he will go down to bed, or we will go upstairs together. He's sleeping throughout the day anyway, but we'll go upstairs together around 8 o'clock, and I will do his last feed just before we get down into bed. And he'll sleep then for about sort of 3 hours. I'll get up again in the night, I'll feed him again. I will of course then pump as well, so my breasts don't feel engorged and heavy and painful and full. And then he'll go from like 11 until 4, so like a good 5 hours of sleep, which is amazing for me. I know it's not going to last. I know it's going to just change and stop at some point. But we'll go sort of 5 hours or so. He'll wake up again for another feed. I'll pump, and then we'll sleep again for another couple of hours until my other little boy gets us up at anywhere between like 6 and 7. So sleeping, I've actually been really lucky over the last couple of weeks. Of course, there are some nights that it can be worse than others, but we're definitely getting somewhere. But like I say, I've been very lucky. I know it's not going to last. So I think that's really everything I wanted to talk about. I did just want to talk about quickly about his kidney function. So I don't know if you've watched any of my other updates. I don't think I mentioned it in the birth story because I was kind of really just focusing on the birth itself. But one of my scans, they noticed that his kidneys were swollen, or the ureter was swollen, and the kidneys weren't draining properly. And they weren't sort of too worried about it when he was inside of me, but then once he came out, they wanted to do scans and things as soon as he was born and give him antibiotics. So as soon as he was born then, we went for an ultrasound on his kidneys and the ureter so they can get a better image, you know, through him rather than doing it on my stomach. Obviously when he was inside of me, they didn't get the best images, but it did show that he still has swollen kidneys, and they weren't draining the way they should, and the ureter as well was still also swollen. They started him on antibiotics. He started them in the hospital, and then we have been given antibiotics to give him. It's just a liquid through a, you know, a little syringe, and we give him that every night, and we are giving him that every night for the foreseeable future. So we've been given an appointment to have like a checkup and an update in September, so a few months to go yet. So he has got the antibiotics every day up until that point, which he isn't a fan of. I don't think it tastes amazing, but I do it during a feed, so he gets the milk and the taste can go quite quickly. But yeah, that's it really. They're not sort of too concerned. They're just going to keep an eye on it and give an update in September. But that is really everything then, like I say, I wanted to talk about. Oh, one more thing was the bond with George. George has had the best reaction to Finley I could possibly ask for. I was slightly worried about how George would react. George isn't a massive fan of babies. He's got like not that he's not a massive fan, I just don't think he was too bothered. But I also thought he's not going to be very happy with sharing myself and my partner either. But he has been the best. He just wants to hold Finley all the time. He wants to help me feed him. He wants to help me change him. They cuddle all the time. Like, he's just obsessed with him, and I could not be more happy as to how he has taken on to Finley. So that has just made me 10 times happier than I was. I was so worried about it, but they are definitely going to be the best of friends. So I think that is where I'm going to end today's video. This little man, his lips are like, they call it smacking, like. So I think he is going to wake up and demand some milk very, very shortly. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said earlier, if you do enjoy it, please give the video a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as a viewer, and I will look forward to seeing you in another video. Take care. Bye.